Dig this.
Granted, there are a lot of us that are sick with chronic conditions like diabetes, Crohn's disease, Alzheimer's, what have you, you know? But then there are also those of us that do stupid things, the thrill seekers, the adrenaline junkies, the daredevils, if you will. They always get injured and they always have to go see a doctor. So now we have all kinds of injuries. There are injuries you do to me. There's injuries I do to you. Maybe there are self-made injuries. But maybe there's an argument to be said for I did something to myself. I gave this disease to myself. But then, the same argument could be made for nobody wakes up and says, oh, I'd like to be diabetic for the rest of my life, you know, having to take needles 4 or 5 times a day, meds, and pricking your finger and all that. Can I please be diabetic? I gave myself pneumonia. Just for as many arguments for, there are as many arguments against. And that is my opening point. However, there is also so much information out in the world that some of it is false, some of it is true, some of it can be interpreted in different ways, which could lead to truth or falsity. Right? There's so much out there. Doctors are kind of like our detectives. Medical crime, if you will. The bacterium did a B&E against the mucous membranes, and the PhD has to go and do a little sleuthing, right? Doctors are always gathering information because we must first identify our enemy before we can fight him. Can't give the wrong treatment or things could get worse, right? That's why they ask so many questions and do so many tests, and that's why it takes so long to get to the bottom of things sometimes. And in the ancient world, things were different. Our understanding of people, life, the world, the environment, medication, narcotics, just our understanding of chemistry and things of that nature, science, medicine, engineering, excuse me, my throat's a little dry, engineering, irrigation, our understanding of that world was limited. So, in the ancient world, had you made a claim like, yeah, I can build that pyramid for you. Yeah, I can build a great cathedral in your name. I can help build your kingdom, your city. And if your designs were flawed, your people kept dying on the job, your project kept getting more and more expensive, chances are somebody would get angry with you and then would charge you with something. The idea that an honest day's work for an honest day's pay was still valued back then, probably. Because if you weren't doing honest work, you didn't get honest pay. So, if you were also the king's physician, Pharaoh's doctor, or whatever, what have you, And if the king dies, you die. If you couldn't do your job, you didn't do your job. So, with doctors today refusing to treat their patients, I equate that to a similar situation to what I just mentioned. And it frustrates me because they're not that I want to harm my doctor. I don't want to harm anybody. It's just the idea of doctor not doing job. There should be some accountability. That's my point. The doctor doesn't want to do the job, then there should be some accountability. Now, at the same time, doctors all too often look for reasons to disqualify a patient from treatment. You need a new liver, but you are an alcoholic. Chances are you are probably going to be at the bottom of the list in comparison to a person who would otherwise be healthy. All they need is a new liver. It's not fair. I certainly don't want to be the one who has to sit in a room with a think tank of people to try to explain or justify the protocol here. It is so complicated. Like, on one hand, yeah, well, you're just going to burn through that liver. That could be saving someone else while you're dying. It's a moral dilemma. I am a pro-lifer. Pro-life in the sense that who has the authority to decide who lives or dies? Who has the authority to decide who gets what treatment? As a politician, hopefully if you were to hear this message, you'd be thinking, what if it was me? Or my family? My son, my daughter, grandchild? What if your son was an alcoholic and all he needed was a liver? But somebody younger, somebody a little more healthier needs that same liver. We all know how this story goes. The politician would try to use his political powers to redirect some medical resources to his child, grandchild, loved one, whilst the person who is not a politician and doesn't have those political powers with the same problem could be in the next room with a child that needs the same liver as the politician's child. But the second child should get it because the politician should not be using political powers and redirecting medical resources, because that is ethically and morally wrong. That is essentially playing God. No one should have that kind of power, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. I don't want to have to be the one to sit there and sift through the legal ramifications of situations like that. That's what I mean by pro-life. I believe that everybody, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you've done, what language you speak, the color of your skin, your gender, what you will identify as, or what your problem is, I don't care. You have the right to be, the right to live, the right to experience, the right to learn, the right to change, the right to interact and communicate with your world. Pro-life meaning everyone, including the politician's child, should have equal and fair chance to overcome, adapt, and live life to the fullest whatever that may look like. That's what I mean by pro-life. But all too often, if things go wrong, there's going to be a lawsuit. Not always. If you have honestly, truthfully done everything possible, and that's including being creative and throwing the kitchen sink at a problem and then trying to blow the freaking problem up and then some, if you've done everything honestly, if it were me, why would I sue you? I'm not a doctor. I can't fix the problem. You're the doctor. You're the one that knows anatomy and problems and crap like that better than I do. You're more qualified than I am to save a life, and you couldn't do it. In time, somebody could eventually come to understand that, and in their grief, realize you did everything you could. If it were me, I wouldn't sue. I would be sending the doctor a card every year. Thank you. This is the day you tried to save my loved one's life. But instead, the idea of a lawsuit prevents that kind of fire and fury to save a life. We will not fail. That kind of fire and fury. The idea of a lawsuit prevents that. Because if something goes wrong, somebody's going to get mad, somebody's going to want to take me to court, and that life is going to cost me money. And it is so very sad that we put dollar values on a human life, when in the same instant, we would both be dead under the exact same circumstances. If they say, for example, a human being cannot go more than 2 minutes without oxygen, or they will be brain dead, then you being a doctor and me being an average Joe are put in a tank and we're drowned. We are left in there for exactly 2 minutes and 1 second. I guarantee you we will both have the same problem. And that is how we should look at things. Because I'm human, you're human, death is not an option. But then, legal issues, right? Everybody has their rights. And everybody's rights needs to be considered and protected. And the complicated part of that is no one's rights are any more important or any less significant than anybody else's rights. That's the complicated part about it. But at the same time, not doing anything, that will eventually stop working. Doing something may give someone a better quality of life, even if for just a while. It's better than a moment of peace is better than a lifetime of pain and suffering. And I'm asking if somebody could honestly and truthfully understand the risks of the situation, the consequences of the choice they're about to make, the gravity of the situation, why can't we waive certain rights? If I know I need a surgical procedure, but because I'm high risk, the surgery can't be done. But what if I said I won't sue you if I die? Or I absolve you of all wrongdoing, or I have made it absolutely clear that my family will not do anything should something go wrong. Let me do something. It is my personal belief that If doing nothing will work for a while, then we should do something about it. If there's, say, a 1% chance it'll work, 99% chance I die. Doing nothing, I die anyways. Guaranteed. You miss every shot you don't take, and this is not taking a shot. You miss. I would personally believe, why not try? 1% chance I'll live. Could always be the 1%. There's always that 1%. I'm probably not, but if I'm gonna die anyway, go down fighting. Right? That's just my personal belief. I would rather a doctor do everything they can to solve a problem than to simply say, And that's why I've come to the conclusion that doctors these days create as many problems as they try to fix. Doctors don't understand how a disease affects a person. I mean, they do in the theoretical sense. You have pneumonia, it's in your lungs, you need your lungs to breathe, you're going to have problems breathing. But they don't see you laboring hours on end trying to breathe. You're gasping for your life while the doctor looks at you, does an exam or whatever, takes a blood test, well, whatever, right? He looks at what's going on and he orders a test, he orders a treatment, signs off on the chart, goes on to the next patient. And it's your nurse hooking you up to this and that, not the doctor. When you're throwing up, crapping yourself, when you're bleeding, it's the nurses that run to your aid. You hit that call button, whether you're having an emergency or not, it's not the doctor that comes running, it's the nurse. The doctor comes running if the nurse calls a cold blue or whatever, but my point in this scenario is that it's never the doctor that comes running to your room on first call. Ultimately, doctors are the ones that are making life and death decisions. And they do that every day. And every day people are dying. And every day people are sick. And it's not their fault, but it's also not the patient's fault either. It's part of being human. But what have we cured? On the actual scale of things, what have we cured? Have we cured paralysis? And there are many forms of it. Many forms of paralysis caused by toxins, deformities, injuries, disease. We fight every day to cure disease, and people are still dying. Doctors make good money, very good money. And as well they should. 10 years for a PhD, something like that. Longer if they want to be a specialist. Even longer to be a surgeon. Even longer to be a surgeon with a specialty. They should make good money. Plus they're probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt at the beginning of their careers. But after all that studying, schooling, all the debt, the student loans, all the sleepless nights cramming for a test or exam, even longer hours doing your placements and stuff, on the job learning, after all that, your $100,000 year advice, sorry, I can't help you. Doctors want to blame us, the patients, for having these problems. But when you go to the hospital, they ask a ton of questions. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, can I please have a debilitating disease for the rest of my life? And yet doctors treat people like we do it to ourselves.